So I got the idea for Carve the Mark when I was really young. I was about maybe 12 years old, and I just had the idea for a story that was about a young man who had been kidnapped and had to learn to kind of adapt to his enemies and then return home like a different and changed person. Not sure what made 12-year-old Veronica think about something that's that dark, but I couldn't find the right setting for it for a while. And it wasn't until I figured out this kind of space setting with this like expansive galaxy that it started to feel like it was working. Setting out to build a galaxy is a little bit daunting because you have to make all the decisions about everything, history, culture, all kinds of like weather patterns and time frames and measurement, all those things. But I think for me, I tried to think about it as like an adventure, and that every decision I made would affect the other decisions that I made. So it was fun. But yeah, it was challenging. I mean, there's always things that like the implications of choices that you make that you didn't quite anticipate. So, as I revised, I had to learn how to like reconcile those or eliminate them and go back to the drawing board, so to speak. So it was a challenge, but a really welcome one. Saira being a complex character is really important to me because when I was growing up, it was really less common to read adventure stories about women. I could read plenty of adventure stories and sci-fi stories, but they usually featured boys, which is fine. But also, when you're a young woman, you want to see someone who feels a little more like you and has an experience of the world that's more like yours. I think it's important for people to see themselves reflected in fiction. So what I would want on the page for my child self is not just a young woman who's strong and capable, because I didn't always feel strong and capable, but a heroine who makes mistakes and has to face the consequences of them and doesn't always know what to do and sometimes needs help, because that feels more like someone I can connect to and someone who really resonates with me. So with Saira and with any female character that I introduce to my stories, I'm always hoping that they feel like a real person, even if they're not in a real situation, and that I'm contributing to like a group of stories that will speak to young women in the way that I really wanted to be spoken to when I was young. My advice to young writers is, well, I have a lot of advice probably, but the first thing I would say is to fall in love with the practice of writing more than the result of writing, because the result of writing doesn't come along all that often. Like, it's hard to finish something and to really appreciate what you've done. But if you can fall in love with the day-to-day stuff, like the creation aspect and the revision part and all of those little like magical pieces of creative work, then you'll be able to persist even when like the results aren't what you want. Like when you get rejected or when you get criticized, like you can fall back on the thing that you love to actually do on a regular basis. And my other piece of advice is to just try to be the writer that you are instead of the one that you wish you could be. So I used to try to write in this like really poetic and beautiful lyrical style, but it didn't come out right because that's just not what my voice is like. And I had a professor circle like a paragraph in one of my short stories when I was in college and say like, this is the best writing in the piece. And it was like a little sparser and more clear. And I don't know, that feedback really impacted me in a huge way, because it was like, oh, I should just try and develop as the writer that I am, becoming better and growing over time, but not becoming someone else. And I think that's especially important for young people, because it's like a metaphor for how you should be generally. Like, just become the person that you are instead of the like thousands of people that you wish you were.